Okay, solving quadratic equations. If you're asked to solve x squared is 25, we know that the answer is 5. 5 times 5 is 25. But there also is another answer of -5 because 5 times 5 is 25, but -5 times -5 is also 25. So if you're ever asked to solve something like x squared is some number, you do x equals plus or minus the square root of 25 because the inverse operation of squaring is square rooting. Now you don't put the plus or minus in your calculator, you just write it out. And square root of 25, you should already know what that is. 5. That's example 1. Example 2. Something like solve 3x squared equals, okay, this one, solve 3x squared equals 48. Make x squared the subject of your formula, like you want to take the 3 to the other side, in other words. You're trying to find x, remember? 48 divided by 3 is 16. So therefore, x does not just equal positive 4, it's plus or minus the square root of 16, which is plus or minus 4. Okay, now I've done these with nice whole numbers. You won't always get whole numbers, all right? One's if I give you the question, solve 5x squared minus 45 equals 0. Remember, I'm trying to solve for x. What do? Oh, there's a few ways I can do this. You can. 5x squared equals 45. What else? X squared is divided by 5, which is 9. So x is plus or minus the square root of, which is plus or minus 3. There's another way I could have done that, by factorising. And we're going, oh no, you haven't learnt it, so forget it. We're not doing it. So that's 3 types. So you can have just straight x squared is 25. You can have 3x squared is 48, which ends up looking like that. Once you manipulate it, you always get it back to how the first example was. And this type as well. Remember, you're trying to get x on its own and work out what it is. So move the number away, divide by 5. X squared is 9 is the same as the first example as well. That's similar type. So we just manipulate these other two to look like that, and we're just really solving the one type of thing. We good? The last type, it's same type. If I ask you to solve 3x squared minus, 28 equals 0, you're not always going to get nice whole numbers, girls. What do I do with this one? 3x squared is? 28. So x squared is 28 on 3. Actually, you know what? Can I make this 4x squared, please? I'm making it 4x squared, change it. 28 on 4, which is? Anyone? I changed it to 4x squared minus 28. 7. Yeah. Now, so x equals plus or minus the square root of 7. That is keeping your answer as a surd, as an exact answer. But you could then find it to a couple of decimal places if you wanted, which is approximately equal to 2.645 dot whatever. Got it? But you always put the exact answer first, and then we might ask you to round it. Equals, yeah, thank you. Good girl. Plus or minus. I'm going to give you another type, because it's going to be like this, but slightly different again, with a 9x squared minus. Yeah, I'm happy for you to leave it as a surd. This one I'm going to do because it's a bit different. Watching? All right, what are we going to do? 9x squared is? Yep. Solve. What else? Right. X squared is 47 over 9. X is plus or minus the square root of all of the 47 on 9, Tell me how you can simplify that. That's the square root of 47 over the square root of 9. Notice my square root sign goes all the way to the bottom and covers the entire fraction. Got it? Now that is the same as the square root of 47 over the square root of 9. What's the square root of 9? So it's the square root of 47 over a normal 3. See that? So x squared is 47 over 9. X is plus or minus the square root of that whole right-hand side. But if you want to do the square root of 47 over 9, you do the square root of 47 over the square root of 9. That's like if I say to you, what's 2/3 squared? Don't you square the top and square the bottom? Don't you square the numerator and square the denominator? Well, if I'm asking for the simplest method, simplest answer, it would be this. Look, you'll do this more next year, but probably not. All right? Anyway, something to think about, girls. I don't want you to get to something like that and not know what to do. No. What's the square root of 9? So that square root of 9 is 3. No, I've left it as square. No, I've square rooted them both. So it's the square root of 47 over the square root of 9. The square root of 47 can't be simplified. The square root of 9 is just 3. I'm just rewriting them. Square root of 47 doesn't change. Plus or minus for both of them. Girls, the plus or minus can go on the top, on the bottom, or in the middle. It's just plus or minus that whole thing. Right. X squared plus 4 equals 0 if you can. If you can. X squared equals what? Can you do that? Why? Because a positive, the same number times itself will never be a negative. You can try this. X is plus or minus the square root of negative 4. Try square root of negative 4 and that says no solution. You cannot square root a negative number. So if you've ever got x squared is negative 4 or x squared is negative 9, you can't multiply two positives to give a negative. And when you multiply two negatives, you'll always get a positive. So that one has no solution. So x squared equals negative c, basically. But that's not the same number times itself. See, x squared means the same number times itself. That has no solution if the actual c bit's positive. Yeah, no, x squared equals something means the same number times itself is a negative, and that never happens. So that's all we're doing there. We're going to solve binomial or quadratic, whatever, or trinomials, doesn't matter, equations. Binomial, trinomial. Yeah, they're easy. All right. It was trinomial quadratic equations. In other words, for example, I showed this to you yesterday. If x plus 2 times x minus 3 equals 0, then when you multiply two numbers, and if you get 0, one of those numbers has to be 0. So, for example, over here the rule is, if p times q is 0, then p is 0 or q is 0. Does that make sense? If two numbers multiplied or two things multiplied to each other give 0, one of them has to be 0. They could both be 0, but at least one of them had to be 0. Does that make sense? So, if x plus 2 times x minus 3 is 0, then x plus 2 is 0 or x minus 3 is 0. Therefore, x could be which two numbers? Negative 2. See, either the first bracket equals 0 or the second bracket's 0. Solving the first bracket, you get x equals minus 2. Or solving the second bit, what do you get? X is, if x minus 3 equals 0, x is positive 3. Now that's the basic type, but we'll give it to you like this. solve. X squared plus 5x plus 6 equals 0. Do you remember? Factorise them. Factorise it, you get one of these, and then you solve. All right, do you remember how to factorise? I'll do two pluses, a minus and a plus. I'm going to do a minus and a minus and a plus and a minus, the 4 types, remember? Do you remember how to factorise? We don't guess. We don't do this by guessing. We factorise and solve.
But if there's like 2 numbers, do we still do it the same way?
X squared, no, this is only for the trinomials. Oh, yeah, I'll show you in a minute. Yes, I know what you're saying. Yep, good call. I'll do another one. I know what you're talking about. Oh, that's a 6. Okay, go. Do you remember how to do these? What 2 numbers multiply to give 6? But I've got, yes, and add up to give 5. Do you remember that? So you factorise it. I want it to look like this. X plus 3, X plus 2. Now you know what to do. Do you remember these? So you remember how we learned to factorise? Well, we're now actually going to use it. This is what you use it for. So, and then you can do them with worded problems as well. So, if I say solve that, it's a trinomial quadratic. In other words, highest power of x is squared, 3 terms. You factorise it first. So first tip is to factorise and then we solve it. So therefore now we know what to do. If that times that is 0, then x plus 3 is 0 or x plus 2 is 0. Therefore x is negative 3 or x is negative 2. It was already factorised.
Yeah, no, but like, wouldn't something else, like maybe 4 times 0 equals 0, like why couldn't x be 2 and 2 plus 2 would be 4?
Yeah, but the x would have to be the same in both brackets because it's the same polynomial. Yeah. All right. Mary, solve x squared plus 4x equals 0. Is that what you meant? Good. Factorise it. What's the common factor? X bracket x plus 4 equals 0. Therefore, that means x times that bracket is 0. Therefore, x equals 0 or x plus 4 equals 0. You got it? So, that's a trinomial. This is just 2 terms. I can pull out a common factor. So if x times x plus 4 is 0, then either the x is 0 or the x plus 4 is 0. Therefore, x is 0 or x is what? Good. I need the bottom row. Another question. 3x minus 6x squared is 0. Solve it for x. Any factorising. So if you ever got a quadratic, try and factorise. If there's 3 terms, you use your brackety thing, like that, for 3 trinomial. 2 terms, you just take out a common factor. What's the common factor between 3x and 6x squared? Look at the numbers. What's in common? 3x bracket. 1 minus 2x. Good. So 3x times 1 minus 2x equals 0. So either the 3x is 0 or what's in the brackets is 0. Does this make sense? Therefore, 3x equals 0 or the 1 minus 2x equals 0. You getting the hang of it? No. No, if you expand the bracket, you go back to where you came from. X on its own, x equals 0 over 3, which is 0. The only way 3 times x is 0 is if that x is 0, right? If you need to solve it, it's x over 3. No, it's not. It's 0 over 3. X is 0. Or how do I solve this? So you can put a little line down the middle. Either the 3x is 0 or the 1 minus 2x is 0. What am I going to do here? Help me solve it. Do you want negative 2x or do you want 1 equals 2x? X is, I took that over. What do you get? 1 over, divide by 2. So my solution, you can box it if you want. X is 0 or X is a half. Solve. Solve. When we say solve, we want you to solve for X. Solve that. X squared minus 5X plus 6 is 0. If you can factorize it, you factorize it. What two numbers multiply to give 6, but add up to give -5? Well, we've got the possibility of 3 and 2, but do they have to both be? Yep, so X minus 3, X minus 2, therefore X minus 3 is 0, or X minus 2 is 0. That means X is, or 2. I will. I'm just trying to make, there is no. Okay, the next one. All right, let's go. Girls, what are we going to do? Factors of 8. It's got to be 8 and 1. One of them's got to be negative. One of them's got to be positive. Yeah, X plus 8. Because -8, you've got +8 and -1. They multiply to give -8, but they add up to give +7. Do you remember? Do we know what to do? Therefore, X plus 8 is 0, or X minus 1 is 0, which means that X is -8 or +1. And the last one, at least we're practicing our, is definitely 5 and 3 more negatives than positives. 15. What do we got? -5 plus 3. Therefore, X minus 5 is 0, or X plus 3 is 0. X is 5 or -3. Answers for X, because this is a quadratic, it's an X squared. If I was able to do an equation with X cubed, how many answers would you expect? This type of equation has 3 answers. They might be the same answer 3 times, but you will have 3 answers. X to the power of 4 is something, we'll have 4 answers. All right, sorry, that's probably not the best example of this one, but it might be like this: X cubed plus 2X squared minus 5X plus 7 equals 0. We do that in 3-unit maths. That has 3 answers. X4 plus something.
Because you have the power.
Yes. The next one, 4 answers. So, X squareds have 2 answers. X cubes would have 3 answers. X to the power of 4 equations have 4 answers. See, this is X to the power of 1. How many answers? 1. X squared is -5. That has no answers. Why? Because you can't square root a negative. So the only time your X squared will not have an answer is if X squared is something negative.